All right. Well, hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Podcast Peeps Mastermind Kickoff webinar. Excited to be here. I'm here like everybody else is. I'm Scott Carson. I'll come back to myself a little bit. We've got Tom and Tracy Hazzard joining us from California. What's up? We were missing a couple people. Is Alex joining us?
No, she couldn't.
She will try to later.
She'll try to join in a little later.
That's fine. Steph will be joining us in a little bit as well, too, probably bouncing in here. But I think I'm excited to be here. Tom Tracy, I know you guys are, right?
Absolutely.
We've been talking about this too long.
Yeah, we have. We've been talking about this for months, and finally, it's good that we decided to go ahead and get things started. But a lot of people, first of all, those that are here, we want to welcome all of you for being here. That's the most important thing. And we'll get to a little bit more about what the Podcast Peeps Mastermind is about in a second here. But we'll be doing these basically every other Wednesday night. It may be all of us, maybe one of us, as a way to kind of help evenly carry the load, because we're all very busy out there. I think we all can agree, right?
Just a little bit.
Not too much. Yeah.
Just a little bit, exactly, a little bit. But we will be doing these every other Wednesday night. Who knows where they'll go from there? But we'll be doing these at least through the end of the year, trying to figure it out. Totally encourage you to go to the website, podcastpeeps.com. Check out the website there. Great things on there. It's kind of in operations, getting rock and rolling. Things that we'll be adding some more things to it.
Alexandra for pulling that off in like 48 hours.
She did a great job with it exactly out there. We also have the Podcast Peeps Facebook group to check out as well for you there. We'll post some things there. But we've got a variety of people that are here. So I think it's where everybody's at. We've got experienced podcasters on here. We've got people that are brand new, kind of new to the game, people looking to get started that are on here. We obviously have some marketers. We've got some vendors of different things out here. And so we're going to have a variety of people joining us here on these conference calls as we get rock and rolling, as we progress for a variety of reasons. But I thought we would start off by introducing ourselves a little bit and go from there. So hang on a second. We got to have a little drum roll. So I figured, Tom, you want to start, introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks so much. My name's Tom Hazzard, and I have, Tracy and I started podcasting together first about, 5 years ago or something?
Almost,
it's been quite a while, and it started as an experiment for us, and it's been quite a journey. That first podcast was about 3D printing, which is a really niche topic. But my background, I'll speak about myself and you'll speak about you, I'm sure, Tracy. But my background is in product design and development originally. I've been doing that for 25 plus years and still do that to an extent. But podcasting has become such a big thing for us. We started a whole other business around it, and it really actually dominates my time. Our first podcast is something like 540 episodes. We have a pretty large audience for it, even though it's a niche subject. And everything we learned really started with that podcast. But now we've started a couple of newer podcasts we've been doing. Feed Your Brand being, the one where we talk about issues here regarding podcasting. And I'm just really excited to be here. And for what we're going to do here with this mastermind. The idea is we're going to help move everybody along to get more out of their podcast. I think we can all help each other. It's meant to be a collaborative thing. It's not meant to be a lecture type of thing. Although, I'm sure there are lots of great subjects we're going to talk about, and we want to hear from all of you and what you want to talk about or learn as time goes on here as well. What else should I say about myself?
He's a Boston Red Sox fan for those Astro fans out there.
And the game is starting.
Yeah, that's right. That's what
we got 30 minutes. We're good.
No,
it's what DVRs are for, and I'll zip through, I'm sure. But no, I am a Boston Red Sox fan. Can't help that. Born in Boston, but live in Southern California, and I don't miss the New England weather, I have to tell you. I never thought I'd like it in California, and after I spent a year here, I was like, what the heck was I thinking? Because this is awesome. So anyway. Southern California, yeah. What else? I guess that's a start. I mean, I'm happy to share anything and everything about me. I'm a very transparent kind of guy, so I'm sure we'll get to more of that as time goes on. But I don't want to take up too much time.
You also work with a bunch of podcasters right now through hosting. And you got that
full transparency. I mean, we have a whole other business called
here.
Podetize here. I'll just do that. Podetize is our business that became out of our experience in podcasting, just figuring out how to do it for ourselves and not take over our lives, but have podcast work for us as best as it could. We put teams together, figured out processes, and eventually people in business said, hey, could you do that for me? Can you do that for me? And after a few of those, I was like, okay, maybe this is a real business. And so it is. The business is Brandcasters Inc., but the main brand is Podetize. And I'm not here to sell you on stuff. Honestly, that's not the focus of this. But, certainly we do have a business in the podcasting space. We produce about 120 podcasts now, and we have our own hosting platform. And there's a lot to that. But, we'll get to that as needed and when whatever. But yeah, so that's it for now.
Good stuff. And then next we've got the lovely lady to your left there. The one that really makes everything rock and roll, right?
So more of you probably see me out there because I'm your spokesgirl. So I'm always out there giving speeches and talks about marketing and product and productizing your business and how you can monetizing it in some way, shape, or form. And so we talk a lot in these last, in the last probably 3 years is mostly about content to commerce. So how you make that happen. So how you take what is information and you turn that into products and business programs and, different things, whether it's software as a service or it is actual physical products, because that's my experience. I'm an Inc. columnist. I've been writing a column on innovation and disruptive technology for 4 years almost. I have 4 years in January.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I write for Thrive Global, and I'm looking at writing for a couple new publications coming up in the next year. So I do a lot of that. And how do we have time to create this much content is the number one question I've gotten pretty much for the last 5 years. Like, how do you do this much work? And it's because we've managed to turn it into a lot less work. And that's really, I think, the key to everything that we do here. And for us, podcasting has just been that key to doing less, because Tom and I, which he didn't mention, we have 3 daughters.
That's right. I didn't mention that.
Our oldest one, Alexandra, we were referring to before, works in our business and is with us. Oh, there she is. That's our beautiful Alexandra. And so she's a kick butt, amazing millennial who has tech skills beyond anyone. I thought I had good tech skills. She kills it. And, and so, but we also have 2 young ones. So we have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. And how do you have time for doing what you do in your business and continually generating leads and doing everything that you need to do? And for me, I speak all over the place. In fact, we leave tomorrow, we go to New York, and then I go on to speak in Hong Kong for my first really big international speaking event. And I'm excited about that. And how do you get these speaking engagements? Well, for me, it's always been the podcast. And so that has been the number one thing that has driven speaking engagements. My column and all of those things have led from there. So what I'm really excited about here and about the mastermind is that, and I always said, when Scott and Tom first approached me, I go, I've been really negative. I probably, said it on 100 podcasts and 100 different things that I don't want to have a mastermind. And they said, well, we promise you it won't be like those other people's masterminds. And what I never liked is I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't want to be lecturing here. I want to be able to really get something, because I need to move my business forward and my speaking goals and all of the things moving forward. And I need people to help me, make me accountable, help put pressure, help give me advice. I need to be able to have that as well as you guys. So that's what I'm excited about, that we're not going to have that kind of mastermind.
Yeah, we will be the least important people on here.
That's what I want.
Exactly. And so I'm Scott Carson. Some of you may know me from We Close Notes. Been a long time real estate investor and educator on the very niche aspect of buying distressed debt. I want to thank a lot of you guys that are on here. Our students are already ready, but been teaching for a while, since 2010, doing a lot of online marketing with videos and YouTube. And what's funny is actually Tom approached me about 2.5 years ago and said, hey, you should do a podcast. Go at Aaron Young's event, who Aaron's on here. And no, I don't want to do a podcast. That seems like way too much work. Little did I know I was doing all the work anyway that I needed to do a podcast. And so he convinced me. About 6 months later, rolled out a podcast. I've been podcasting now for about 14 months. Really loving it. It's become a very big focal point in our business in raising capital and getting the word out. to our investors and our students. And so very, very excited to be here. I've had masterminds before with our real estate stuff. We'll get that in a second here, but absolutely just joyous to be here with everybody that's joining in the first time, and those that watch this afterwards, the recording, because we will be sharing this out there as well. But there's a lot of opportunity, and we've seen some holes in the podcasting community is why this is kind of popping up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people are always asking really good questions, trying to figure out how to do more and get more out of their podcast. And, you know, everybody has, of course, different goals for their podcast that they want out of it. And it's really you know, there are definitely a lot of recommendations and best practices, do's and don'ts, but there's a lot of gray area in the middle. And I think a lot of questions that, you know, haven't been served in other ways. And that's where we thought this mastermind could really fill that gap.
Exactly. And what were you saying?
Joined. We just saw her beautiful face pop up.
There she is. So the woman behind that helps me out tremendously, also, who's a part of this, also is a big driving force behind our existing We Close Notes Mastermind, is the one, the only Stephanie Goodman, basically you call my spouse, basically the woman that keeps me in line, everything out there. Is she there? Steph, I don't see her.
You don't.
Oh, there you are. There you go. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So share a little about you. You're kind of a newer podcaster as well.
I would say a very new podcaster, actually. I started one with a bit of nudging and help from some friends in this room on this webinar it's called the Fur Babies podcast. And so we've done 3 episodes. One's really short, but yeah.
Steph is really great at catching the spinning plates. I will say this.
Yes.
So Steph's been a big part of our real estate mastermind, actually one of the big catalysts behind helping us get things planned and organized, and been doing some of that today as well for some more stuff out there. But so basically over the next few weeks, you'll have a combination of the 5 of us, right, everybody?
Yep, absolutely.
Here to help answer questions or facilitate this, or help kind of help this blossom for everybody that's involved with it. So, you know, we've all been to different events, and like we talked about, there's kind of a big gap in some of the things. We've all been to Traffic and Conversion, PodFest, or VidCon, or Social Media Strategies, or New Media Summit, Social Media Marketing World, and then of course Podcast Movement is one of the bigger things. And Tom and I were talking at some of these events together, and Steph's been there too, and Tracy's been there, a variety of things. We're just talking about. It's great to go to big events, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It's totally great. It's great networking there. You get great nuggets. But then when you leave, it just kind of, within 2 weeks, you're kind of back to the same old, right? You miss out on a lot of that excitement and momentum coming out of there. You may be able to get 1 or 2 things implemented, or meet a vendor or two to help out some things. But there's not that kind of continuous hand-holding or continuous kind of like tapping into the fire, as I like to say. You know, the excitement after an event, we all get that fire. Hey, we want to go do some big things, or go blow our business up, and rebuild things, or boost our show. There's not that constant support out there. And yeah, there are Facebook groups out there that help promote you, or the podcast support groups. There's other great Facebook groups out there to kind of help you with a little bit of things, but it's not the same type as actually getting on a call or getting on in person with a video to really help you take your business to the next level. And so as Tom and Tracy and Steph and Alexander and all the 5 of us have been talking about different things, we realized that, hey, there's this big gap. Yes, there's great ways to get information found, but there's big gap in sitting down and talking to people who are in the business day in, day out, and really dealing with the hurdles every day. Right, Tom and Tracy?
Well, I also think, just to mention it, is that a lot of the people who organize these things like do one aspect of podcasting or something like that. Maybe they're audio editors, or they're selling a course, or they're putting an event on, and they aren't necessarily podcasters themselves, or they're not building a business that doesn't totally 100% focus around podcasting. Their information is only partially useful outside of them promoting the next event or promoting the next thing. So that's really where I feel like, you know, I really want to make sure that we're helping people build businesses, just like you do, Scott, just like We Close Notes has grown because of your podcast. Like that, that's where we all want to learn more. Are we building businesses, growing our brands? If it's a personal brand, growing our speaking, our speaking profiles, whatever it is that we're all each looking for. I want to make sure that we're really focusing on that part of it and not just about, having a cool podcast that people download.
Yeah, that's totally critical. So let's talk about masterminds actually a little bit. Like I started one back in 2010, small group of people getting together 7-8 days in a house. We're not going to do that again, right, Steph?
No, we are not.
But what's great is that group has grown to a large group of people literally pulling, coming together on a regular basis, networking, talking, working on each other's businesses. And that's the whole goal for the podcast peeps out here. So if you've never been a part of a mastermind, I think the big question is always first, what is a mastermind? And it was kind of defined by Napoleon Hill back in the day. A mastermind groups offers a combination of brainstorming, education, peer accountability, and support in a group setting to sharpen your business and personal skills. Mastermind group helps you and your mastermind group members achieve success. Participants challenge each other to set powerful goals and, more importantly, to accomplish them, right? That's a very important thing. You've heard Tracy say that, Tom say that, Steph and I all say that as well. And the group requires commitment, confidentiality, willingness to both give and receive advice and ideas, support each other with total honesty, respect, and compassion. Mastermind group members act as a catalyst for growth, devil's advocates, and supportive colleagues. So this is the essence and value of mastermind groups, right?
Absolutely.
With a podcast flair.
Podcast flair.
Exactly. So one of the things that I did, so we get a little bit better idea about who's on the call here, who's on the webinar with us, is we all kind of came up with some ideas for questions on some different things. So we put together a little poll for you guys out there. It basically comes up with it's just a few questions here. And don't flip out. Don't like, oh my God, I got to answer some questions and leave. No, it's basically 6 questions. And so we're going to launch this. And so if you would take a few seconds to go and fill these out. So like the first question is, how long have you been podcasting? Brand new, less than a year plus. If you don't have a podcast, but brand new would be the best way to answer that. The next question is, how often do you record episodes? A show a day, a show a week, once a month, or I binge, maybe you binge 10 episodes in a day or do whatever you do. Those that are commenting on there, I appreciate it, but please go fill the poll question that you should be able to see. Oh, hang on. It helps if actually I launch the polling.
Right. Yeah.
Just a little bit. We got you. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, out there. So thank you for those that are they're answering in the chat roll. But literally, how often do you record your new episodes? Are you recording with audio or video? Audio only, or I use video. 4, what do you need the most amount of help with? I think it's going to be our biggest focus with tonight for everybody is, do you need help with technical and hosting help, or coming up with content, or finding guests? Growing your audience obviously is a big thing for most people. Monetization, sponsorships, we hear that everywhere we go. Help with marketing or getting booked on other shows is kind of a big thing for people too. I guess you could throw that in marketing or growing your audience, but I thought I'd include that separately for things. And then of course, one of the biggest things with a mastermind is, how do you have goals for your podcast by year end? We all talk about big things for 2019, but what do you have planned for the rest of the year? And if you do, great. We'd love to hear about them. If no, maybe you need to have something. Okay. Yep. And then I added one more question on there that I thought would be valuable for everybody too, is why do you podcast? It's your job to do it. You got to do it. It helps you market your business and services, or it's a passion project. So take a few seconds to fill out. We've got, please take a few minutes. If you're listening or you're watching this, please take a few minutes, fill the information out on the screen there for you.
And if anyone's having tech problems, at the bottom of the Zoom screen, there's like participants Q&A polling. The polling should have automatically pop up. It's like a form, but if it didn't, click that and it will pop back up for you.
Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always your tech watch.
Although it's always very impressive how good you are with, the Zoom tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just get on, connect with somebody, talk and record.
Awesome, Aaron.
Right?
Yeah, I've probably got the most experience with Zoom on here, and I goofed that up there right off the bat, didn't I? That's okay. But yeah, so the reason we ask these basic questions is to kind of get a feel. But Tom and Trace, you got kind of something cool on the website, on the Podcast Peeps website, though. You want to talk about that while people are filling out these questions?
What are you referring
What
to?
cool thing? What cool
Don't
thing?
you have the survey on there? The survey, how does your podcast stack up?
I don't know if it's
quiz.
up yet.
I don't think it's launched yet.
Yeah.
I think that we didn't quite pull that off.
Okay, all right.
Today, but
By the next time in 2 weeks.
Next one, 2 weeks from now, yes, we do actually, because I think one of the questions we hear from podcasters is, they see their own numbers. They see their, they hear from some of the listeners through email. They don't really know though how they stack up against other podcasts. And it's not that it's all a race or a competition and you have to get to 10,000 downloads an episode or whatever. I'm not talking about, ultra competitiveness in that regard, but people just don't know. Hey, if I'm getting 150 downloads an episode on a regular basis, is that decent as a new podcaster? Is that not doing so well compared to a lot of others? I mean, where am I on the scale of all the podcasters?
I would call it less a quiz and more of an assessment. And the thing is that we base this assessment and the data behind it on something different than what you see out there. So for a lot of people, the only benchmark they have in the world is for them to look at, John Lee Dumas publishes his numbers and his numbers say he has 1 million downloads an episode, or something ridiculous. And the thing is that that's not realistic. If you're launching your podcast today, it's not realistic. If you were launching 2 years ago, it's still not realistic. So compared to other people at your stage, for people who do an episode a week, who do it at this rate, where do you fall and where does that assess you and put you in the rank of, is it really giving you the brand authority you expect? So kind of understanding that. And we get a lot of people when I do a strategy session with them and they'll say, well, I've only had my podcast, usually they're a little more than 3 episodes in, Steph, but, maybe they're like 10. No one's talking to me. And I'd be like, well, did you know that typically it takes till you hit between 25 and 50, and it depends on about how many weeks before people will start talking to you. And they're like, nobody says that. I'm like, well, we've done a lot of podcasts, but this is very common. And I have a few reasons why I believe that that's the case, but don't feel bad. You're doing good because you got an email this week. So yay for you, so
keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Right. And so sometimes we just need to kind of put ourselves in that world in which we can assess compared to others at this stage today, not the way people were doing it 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because some of them were. So, but
also depending on what your goal is for your podcast, where you are today and where you'd like to go and how you're going to get from here to there, the assessment, call it a quiz, call it an assessment, whatever. I mean, that is, I think, a tool. Hopefully it'll be useful to a lot of you. And that's why we've already created it offline, if you will. And it's just a matter of the system to put it online and make it available to you. It'll probably be done actually in a matter of days, but certainly by the next mastermind call, it will be available, and we'll make sure you all know about it, where to find it. And it will be on the podcastpeeps.com website. You'll be able to access the homepage. It will be there.
We can't be sharing the headphones and having you be like.
So one of the things that was big about me when I got started here was some things I didn't know how I ranked up with episodes. And I would talk to people like you said, somebody's got 1 million downloads, and I'm like, oh man, I feel kind of bad. It's actually at Traffic and Conversion with Tom. The guy's, I got 1 million. I'm like, oh, but then you're like, well, his episodes are only like 15 minutes long. I'm like, oh, my average episode's like 45 minutes long. So people download 3 episodes to what they listen on one mine. Oh, I'm actually doing pretty good. So I reduce his numbers by, 2/3 to figure out if I'm on the right track and where I'm going. But like you said, Tracy, there's a lot of questions that people have that nobody shares because it becomes like common sense after a while, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So
really don't.
Yeah. So we got 75%, boom, have answered the poll. So I'm going to end the polling.
That is fantastic.
That's great stuff. Exactly. So let's see here. Let's go through here. So how can you guys see the screen? Let's share results here.
I don't see it. There you go.
Yep.
All right. So 60% are brand new, 30% are less than a year, and then 12% are a year plus, which is awesome. So we've got some good people doing some great things. A show a week is hang on here. Yeah. A show a week is the biggest thing, right at under 50%. Roughly just under 20% binge, and people are doing at least once a month. Okay, great.
I binge record. I like the answer there.
You like that, don't you? Right? Exactly. 65% are just doing the audio aspect of thing. Only 35% are using video to help record their things.
I think that jives pretty well with all the people we work with. Like I said, we work with about 120 some odd podcasters, and about 25%, I think, for us are using video, recording it as video and putting out video at the same time. Everybody else is just audio.
Cool. What do you need most amount of help with? Obviously, is why everybody's here, right? Growing my audience, no surprise there. Roughly 30%. Next biggest was monetization, sponsorships at just under a quarter. That's no surprise. Next of that is technical and hosting help, then followed by help with marketing, and then getting booked on other shows was one person. Okay. Cool.
Great things to be wanting to work on.
No, but they're really common. I think this is a really common problems.
Mm-hmm. And then basically 75% do have goals for year end by your podcast, which is great. 25% or 24% don't. I think if you actually set a goal, set a goal, set something to try to accomplish by the year, and that'll keep you on track of things. But here it is. I love this here. Why do we podcast? Nobody says it's their job to podcast.
I might say it's mine. It didn't start out that way, but it has become, it became a whole new company for us that has dedicated employees, and the majority of my job is podcast related, if not podcasting every day.
Mm-hmm.
I love
exactly. And 82%, it helps assist along with their business or services, which is great. And then just under 20% say it's a passion project. Okay, great. Good stuff. Good stuff there. So before we dive into kind of going through.
Alexandra's going to pop her head in.
Hey, Alexandra. How's it going?
Kid duty because it's 5.
Right. Exactly. So I'll come back to this here. Let me come back to that here a little bit. Can you still see the poll or not?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me do.
Maybe we have to close it. Each of
Nope.
us.
I'll stop sharing results there. There we go.
Oh, there you
There we go.
We'll come back to that. But so let's talk about what they need help with. So let's talk about the poll. Let's go back. Let's pull it back up here. Let's see here. Let me go back down here. So the number one thing is about growing my audience on this. And so what I would love, I think would be really good, is to hear from some of you that answered that, how to grow your audience in specific things. And I think I hate to say this, but if we throw some people not under the bus, but we maybe bring on and ask some extra questions about it, let's do some hot seats. What do you say?
I think it's a great idea for those that are willing.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Raise your hand and we could pop you on.
Exactly. Let's see here. I'll respond to thing here. Let's see here. Stephanie says, I want to do video, but my co-host refuses. I told her just to film her chihuahua. That's kind of funny, Stephanie, with Boomtown Marketing. That's funny.
Stephanie, that is like so funny because when we first started, I didn't want to do video because I didn't want to have my hair done every day. And the other day I looked at my Facebook Live that I did and I was like, boy, I didn't even powder my nose, put any lip gloss on. Boy, I'm really getting casual about this now.
Exactly. And our first sacrificial lamb, who says he's ready to come on, which we love him, which is awesome, is the man, the myth, the legend. I'm going to bring him on here. Aaron Young from Laughlin and Associates. We'll let him introduce his show and what he's kind of about. We'll go from there. So can you see?
Let's give him a hand.
Hi, Aaron.
We need sound effects, Scott.
I know. Where's the sound box, Scott? There we go. That's what it's about.
That is close.
All right. Is Aaron there? I can't see him.
He's muted.
Oh, hang on here. Let me go in here.
Wait.
Oh, we got you now. We got you.
What's going on, Aaron? Nice setup there, brother.
Right?
Well, thank you. This is the video studio with the lights and everything. But and do you guys know, Scott or Tom at least knows that in 30 minutes from now I have something I have to do here myself. So, but no, you guys, seriously, I did one podcast. I felt like it was going well, called The Lookout. It had no particular end game in mind. So I kind of quit after about, 40 episodes or something. And then relaunched under, look at this cool thing that I got from the Hazzards, the Unshackled Owner podcast. Again, I was very good about it. and then got lazy over this summer, and now you guys will get a bunch of episodes uploaded over the next few days, and we've now scheduled a whole bunch of appointments with people who are unshackled owner clients. But the point is, people always say go out and get people that have a huge audience and really do a great job of tagging them, and maybe you'll attract their people in. The truth is that I'm not looking for a broad audience. I'm looking for a very targeted sort of audience. And so I feel somewhat clueless on how to attract those people in. And so if we're talking about building audience, consistency, I get, but the breadth of the business owners that would be potentially right for this message, it's not everybody. A lot of people want to listen to it, but just because people want to listen, that's not necessarily the market I'm trying to find. So there you go. There's my problem. I'm ready to be under the bus, sacrificial lamb, whipping boy, whatever you want to call me.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you mentioned something really good. You mentioned who your avatar is, right?
Yes. Business
owners, what's their age group?
Well, the age group's going to be, there's some discrepancy, but they're mostly in that 40 to 60-year-old range.
Okay. And they probably all have CEOs or management or some O in their title, right?
A lot of them call themselves CEO, although I'm not actually looking for those CEOs that are, I'm not looking for enterprise level CEOs. I'm looking for people that own successful small businesses. And when I say successful, I'm talking about people who are in that, on average, they're going to be north of $750,000 a year in revenue. And probably on average, they're going to be south of 50 million. So they're mostly going to be $3 to $20 million companies, people that have some employees, and people that are looking for ways to get some relief from being a slave to their company.
Okay. Tracy, I see you hankering over there to jump on there.
Jump in.
I said before, Scott, actually, you're really good at dialing into the deep dive niche area, which I think is really one of your strengths at once you find it. But it's that first part that I think is the hardest for most people, which is finding out where they hang out, right? Where am I going to locate them the best? And that's the hardest part that Aaron's struggling with, because in a way, what you have isn't niche enough. It's too broad, even though it does sound niche, because they don't self-define. Right. So for instance, I speak to groups that are Amazon sellers. They don't self-define as Amazon sellers because they don't want others to know that that's what they do. So if I went for only people who said they were CEOs of like really small businesses, I'd get a bunch of the wrong types of CEOs. So finding some way at which they self-define or self-associate. So do they belong to the Better Business Bureau? Do they belong to some small business organizations? Like any way in which you can find something that they all pretty commonly do.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, and then we won't take too much time on me. Okay. Hold on. Then I have right now that's an insurance brokerage. I got a company. These are in the classifying as they feel shackled. When they hear unshackled owner, then they go,
and I have to make time for it. That's my problem.
Alex is like, no, you aren't. You're shackled.
Common meeting places, common groups, and so on. I've struggled with that.
Okay. Here's $25,000 a year or $250,000 and beyond there, the 45 to 65. They're not hanging out on Instagram, even though Instagram.
I'm willing to believe that, but since I don't.
He raises capital and he's looking for people have money because they're working, and we all know they're workaholics, where they don't have time. Like Mr. Hazzard said over there, should be such a 401k. Why don't you invest it with me? And it's how you raise capital. So
smart.
Yeah, smart there. So the beautiful thing is you can advertise on LinkedIn by narrowing down. So one of the things that actually Tom and I just discussed here a couple of nights ago is I was looking to get booked on more podcasts in the real estate side. So I just went onto LinkedIn and typed in CEO, or you could type in, I typed in podcast host or real estate or, business owner might be something for you to do. And then you don't have the time to go out there and connect with them, but you should probably hire somebody who could very easily log in as you and just go out there and connect with them on an individual basis. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, then you once you connect with them, export your contacts and drop them an email. Hey, I'd like to invite you out to the Unshackled, or I'd like to invite you out to this.
Yep.
Doing the same thing on Twitter because it's instantaneous. It's on their phone because they want to spend time on their phone, and doing the same thing, doing a search for CEO. Like if I go onto Twitter right now, hang on here.
So
Well,
quick,
but anyway, that search for podcast hosts, just an example, and I know that's not your niche, but he found 349,000 people on LinkedIn listen to podcast host.
Right.
And then when you narrowed that down to real estate and podcast hosts, it was like 13,000 or something.
Yeah, it was total 13,000, and then I narrowed it down one more to where I'm just a second degree connection away from them,
Mhm.
and there was 15 or 1,700 people, which I reached out to. I reached out to the first 100, trying to just connect with them. Once out of that 100, 40 actually.
a day, by the way.
Say what?
Don't reach out to more than 100 a day.
Mhm.
It'll flip out on you. I usually keep it under 75 a day. That's just my personal experience with them. But one of the things, Aaron, that I was just
Hang on a second though. But I connected with over 40 of those people, and I'm guest host on 25 of their shows in the last 48 hours.
Gotten booked.
You've gotten booked on their shows in the last 48 hours.
Yes.
Well, that is okay. So I love that. Sounds like, I mean, I'll go do that. And I have people to do it for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the one thing that I would add to that, Aaron, is that you can put a couple of screener criteria, and that is that whoever you find, make sure whoever's doing the research on the list, because you can do a list, you can pull a list and then you can refine the list.
Yeah.
Make sure they have a company page, a LinkedIn company page, and that they say they have employees of a certain amount, like over 10 employees or something like that, right? And
Sure.
and that will help screen them down rather than say, oh, it has to be a second degree. And then you don't have to you connect to them, but you don't have to offer them up your program right away. The first thing you can offer them up is, hey, I've got this tip sheet, for how we handle employees. You've got your freedom formula, which is your sheet. Just offer that up to them. Give them something. Or I just recorded this podcast and I thought you'd be interested. Or there's his book. There you go, Scott. You're such a good promoter.
I'm amazed that he's got his book right there. I'm sitting here going,
right there.
Here, hold on.
Find his.
Here you go, Austin, Texas. There we go. Yeah.
That's familiar.
But that you said, but this is something you send an ebook of this. Hey, if you like to opt in, check this out. It's an easy lead pages thing, easy thing to lead them to.
Aaron,
Yeah.
that I just want to mention briefly, and then we'll have to take a deeper dive into this for you at some point. But we have to mine all of the clients or customers that you have at Laughlin Associates. I mean, you must
a
have
lot.
thousands of business owners that you work with. So how do you mine them and identify the ones that are your avatar and then make them an offer?
Yeah, amen. And I agree. And we can talk more about this. I just thought if you're looking for somebody, I'm definitely looking for help. So I thought I'd throw myself out as the first guy because I'm trying to overcome being so shy.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Good luck on your freedom call.
On the hot seat.
Thanks guys. Okay, bye-bye.
So I think that Scott, your experience for what you just did this weekend when we were texting back and forth about it is a lesson for all of us podcasters. And I want to make sure that somebody commented, wow, I think Stephanie Lahart did. And that's great. I just want to make sure that we emphasize that point. I mean, any of you can go and on LinkedIn, mine podcast hosts, narrow it down to the niche that makes sense for you to be a guest on their show to help promote your show. And look, Scott did this literally in 48 hours, and he's gotten booked on 25 shows between now and the end of the year. And he and Tracy are on a little competition.
Now we're going to have a competition. So this is what I hope the mastermind does. So when he said he did it, I was like, oh, and that's my strategy. I actually use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I haven't gone and done my plan for who I was going to target yet this year, but that was my next year plan, was to start to get on that. And now I was like, and I was going to do 50. Now I'm going to have to double it and do 100. I'm not going to do them that fast. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to have to do 100 shows next year.
I was thinking of trying to get booked about 100 shows by the end of the year.
Oh,
my
look at you. I do not have time for that.
I don't have time either.
Neither does he.
Yeah, I don't have time for that either.
He's like, no.
But I think the point is a lot of people fail to understand that there's a lot of great places to find that type of information. You just got to pick it. I've used LinkedIn for a lot for growing my real estate investor audience for our classes and webinars and things like that. And I just like, let me try this. And sure, lo and behold, it was there. So we've got some comments from people out here. Tim had a head out. Stephanie Lahart said, wow. Keith Baker with the Private Investor podcast says, hey, Tom, first pitch was a strike. Then Betts got hit by a pitch.
Betts got hit with a pitch. Well, he's on base.
Right. So who, we have anybody else out there who's a guest who would like to jump on and talk about their show, talk about what's going on?
So earlier on, Nadia sent, which Nadia and I have been talking back and forth, and she sent a picture of our artwork. Nadia, can we share it with everybody? I think you sent it to everybody.
Well,
I don't know. I can't link it and share my screen right now. But
here, I think I can go in there. I can go in there. Let me do that real fast here. Hang on here.
She came up with a new art.
So Nadia, just to explain, and Nadia can come on and explain herself, but she's changing her show. Yes, it can be shared. Great,
thank you.
She's switching her show up and she's changing the artwork. And so we were having a comment back and forth, and I'm sure that you all would be happy to share.
That could be, yeah, there we go.
Ooh,
I like it.
Oh, Nadia,
Wow.
it looks really good. I like it. It has science and it has art in it, which is so you.
Well,
It's got a lot of love
you should
going on.
explain what.
And I really like the title. So let Nadia explain it.
Well, if she's willing to
You
come
wanna
on.
come on and
I mean,
talk?
the reality is, I think as a artwork, very attractive. The colors grab me. It jumps off the page. I personally really like it. The text for the name is a little light.
Yeah, it could be a little
I mean,
darker.
fine, I guess is what I'm saying. Not light in terms of color. That was a bad word. It's fine. And when you see that shrink down to
Can
like,
you shrink it to an inch, Scott?
Hang on here. Let me.
I don't know if you can
You
do
can
it.
hit
I
it.
can't on here. Right? I can't do that right now. No.
All right. Well,
Actually,
when
no.
you shrink that
Yeah.
down, you can only,
You can only go
okay.
bigger.
When you shrink that down on a smartphone in a search, the image is attractive, and that might get me to click, okay, alone. But I don't know that I'll be able to read that. That's the only comment I have. I like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
So
But I think I love the title, Nadia. It's great. There she is.
there she is.
Hi, Nadia.
So do you guys know Nadia? Have you met before?
Hi.
Actually, Karen's
haven't.
met,
Yeah,
Scott.
she was at Magnify Your Wealth event last month.
Nadia.
Or was it this
Hi, Scott. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So, what was the question when it switched?
Tell us about your show. Tell us what your show is first, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so, okay. Basically, what happened is I released the first 40 episode of Love Yourself Back to Life, which was me coming and me figuring myself out and getting my emotional freedom. So now I'm transitioning to financial freedom, and it's called like this. Love Yourself Back to Life is like I'm done. I have to, and this is in preparation to get to my new future and also to the new year. So the conversation is more or less the same, similar to what Aaron does. So I pick a topic that has some powerful information about it, but it's all about a mindset. Like I'm just going to give you an example. Like, let's take skincare. And I think I mentioned to all of you before, like skincare, it can be about a facial, like the vampire facial, and which cost $1,000. But then the question is, why are you going through this process? And what's your self-worth and behind that makes you do this? So I'm explaining something that is somewhat related to skincare or beauty or something, but also what makes you do these things. But it's all tie in and sharing information from a different perspective, because I know people, on the blog side, like what you see on the internet is it's like there's somebody said something at one point and everybody gets into the same bandwagon, as in like, let's say no paraben.
Let me jump just give a little background for the people who don't know you, Nadia. Nadia is amazing, has an amazing skincare line that she's developed, and it's amazing, and it does very, very cool things, and she'd like to sell more of it. But it's really hard today to become a beauty brand, right? To become out there. And what she's discovered is that beauty and self-worth are tied together.
Mm-hmm.
Loving yourself and wanting beauty products are tied together. So having a content strategy around having greater self-worth, having more love for yourself, having assertive radiance, which is why I really like that, because radiance has a lot to do with how I would like my skin to look.
Mm-hmm.
And if it really does come to the end of the day that I don't need a vampire facial, I just really need to love myself more, then why not be in on that? Because that's a whole lot cheaper and a little less scary. Right? I mean, Steph's like, you gotta be a little scared about that too, Steph. But it's, why not do that? So that's where I think your shift here is working for you. It's got you in it because of the chemical, you've got your bottles, the science, and you're going to tie formulas back. So I love it. I'm really happy with it. I agree with a couple comments about increasing the font or changing the font a little to make it stronger, just so assertive radiance stands out when it gets really.
So when you're making the reference on the font is the title and the name, both font, right?
The name's okay because that's an okay place for it to be. People will.
Yeah, as an ingredient of it, that's fine. No issue with that.
It's the title itself needs to stand out a little more.
So maybe instead of going like with the font, what is right now it's oregano, which has more like a script font. Maybe I just put as like open sun or something that will carry that boldness. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, just so the line weight is a little thicker and stronger.
Yeah. Okay, now I see what you want. Okay.
Like really shrink it down for yourself. Like that's what I always do, or like put it on your computer and walk across the room, right? Whatever you need to do to just go, can I still read that title and does the words still look good for me?
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. This is really what I needed to know. I mean, I'm glad that I got it in time for this and we can actually wrap up that conversation.
You turned that around really quick from what I saw last time. So we actually have a question.
There's somebody named Peter posted a question that we can give a quick answer to, I think. I know we have some strong opinions about it. His question is, it's better to use a picture of yourself on your artwork? Does it just depend on your subject? So I'll go first, and you can.
I have big opinions on this one.
Our opinion is, unless you're a nationally known celebrity, have a really recognizable face because you've been on television or you've been in the media or with the print media or whatever, a lot nationally, keep your face off your artwork, because everybody, especially in the beginning, because people don't know you, and if they're searching on iTunes or Google Podcasts, they see all these cover arts. Your face is going to be the biggest thing they see, and if they don't recognize you, they keep scrolling. Mm-hmm. So that's just my opinion. I don't think it really serves a lot of podcasters well who do it, but ultimately it's your show and it's your choice.
So I mean, this is something where we have the benefit of having done so many shows and so many different types of shows, and I can tell you that the ones have a slower start who put their face on it and are not already established or an authority in the industry. So thinking about this, like I kind of liken it to The Voice blind audition, right? You want to stand out there and you don't want your face, your choice, or who you are to stand in the way of someone choosing your show right now.
That's a good point.
So once you're established and you've got lots of reviews, you've got hundreds of episodes, you're already the place of choice. At that time, if you want to do more of a personal brand building strategy, go ahead and start adding your face into some of your shows and then add your face to it. That's an okay way to do it. But at the beginning, it's really not a growth strategy.
So it's more like a burger thing. Yeah. If you're going to be a burger restaurant, you want the golden arches because everybody knows what that is and one knows where to look for that, right? Not Bob's Burger who's flipping the burgers by himself. You want to have a logo kind of clean without my freaking big melon of a head on it, which takes up most of the space anyway, right?
That's right. And that's the thing. It's like there's a limited amount of space. They can find you and all of that is always out there, and there's always room on your header graphics and all over your website for that kind of stuff. But in a show, it's just not the place.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You have limited real estate here when they're scrolling, right?
That's right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so people got to jump off.
Sorry, Scott. Scott and I have a bet going with the series. He's from Texas and a Houston fan. And if the Sox win the series, he has to wear a Red Sox jersey on a live stream. And if I lose, I have to wear an Astros jersey on a live stream. And
I think the hat would be better. There's too much of the jersey being covered by the,
well, whatever. Doesn't matter. All right. Sorry, I digress.
Okay.
So Stephanie Lahart said, "Oh my God, Tom, that's great advice. I wondered about that. Putting your face on there." Tommy said, "See you out. Check out the website. In the meantime, see you in 2 weeks again. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you again here next time."
Absolutely, we'd love to see you again.
Awesome. So who else has some issues about that they'd like to discuss about their show? You know, who's got a need or a big gaping hole they'd like to have filled? That's kind of dirty, but anyway.
Ooh, that's techie.
Peter,
come on and talk to us. I want to know what your show is. Let's have Peter come on and talk.
All right, I'll bring Peter on here real fast.
Hopefully he wants to.
We may have to put a sign up saying
volunteer for tribute.
Sign up. We may
just call on you.
There.
Yeah. Your picture if you don't want to, but still, we may just call on you.
All right, I've unmuted Peter. Are you there, Peter?
I am.
Hey, Peter.
But I don't have a video camera right now.
That's okay.
Tell us about your show briefly.
So let me turn up the volume so I can hear y'all.
Okay. Peter, can you tell us briefly a little about your show?
I have a business travel podcast. I'm a business traveler for a job, and Scott will be hopefully a guest next week.
Awesome.
But I started it 5 months ago. I travel for my job, and I decided to start talking and sharing travel tips and hacks with other business travelers.
Cool.
And it's been pretty successful in my view, but you know, comparing myself to 140,000 downloads and all that, I'm like, woo, not quite.
Where are
that's
you
okay.
with your show?
Don't be self-conscious about that, for real.
Yeah, no, I know. It is what it is.
No.
What was that, Tracy?
Where are you with your shows? So 5 months, but how many episodes is that? Like one a week?
Yeah, about one a week. I have I had a month of technical difficulties where I couldn't record anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm 17 in, and I did another one today, and I've got 3 scheduled for next week.
Great.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and it's just a passion project, as you put it on your poll.
Are you just doing video? Are you doing video too, or just audio?
Audio only.
Much easier. I love audio, but I am being dragged into video, and it's video's a great thing.
Well, I don't mind doing video. The goods and bads of, unfortunately, I am trying to interview people that travel for work, so the scheduling has just been really difficult.
Well, maybe you have to start doing it where you're like getting them when they're traveling and getting them to turn their video on and give you a little video shot that you could use. So,
and that's where I'm not technical. I mean, my first podcast I ever listened to was in May, and the same month I started podcasting.
Wow.
There you go.
So Peter, one of the things I would recommend, we can talk about this a little bit later too, but since we're using Zoom here, it's really complicated with Zoom, but Zoom is completely smartphone friendly. So like you literally, if my power went out here, I could log on and use the camera directly from my phone to communicate. And so when I've had podcasters, guests come on who weren't in an area with a webcam. And so all I did was put their earbuds in, turn their phone around, and we had a conversation back and forth, and it recorded it to my computer or my cloud, and the audio is really good. If it was windy, I want to go in some places not so windy,
and
stuff like that. But I would think with a travel thing, I think you might want to add video to it, because if you're standing outside of an airport or you're at some place that's fancy, like a hotel or monuments and things like that, I think that would add kind of like the Anthony Bourdain, the layover, they would talk about.
Yeah.
So would you like to do a Hong Kong piece in a week and a half?
No.
That'd be fun.
No, I'm going to be there.
You want to interview her?
Oh, yeah, I would love to interview. I'm not going to Hong Kong in a week and a half.
I don't want to go to Hong Kong. No.
She's going to be
I'm going to be on the floor trade show spot. On the floor, when I'm in Hong Kong, I'll record something for you, and then we can talk about it after, but I'll give you a video piece you can at least use.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm still trying to figure out, like, I honestly can't figure out why the camera on my laptop isn't working right now.
It's tricky. Sometimes the webcam's in with Zoom. It gets like it is. It may be. Hang on here. Let me try something here. I could. No, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, we're thinking about that. What about, you asked about meta tags? Do you mean in the MP3 files themselves, or
Yeah.
Yeah. So ID3 tags you're talking about then?
Yeah, because I've been using, my daughter has created her own music, and I've been using it as the intro music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the ID tag is for her and not my podcast. So when I found out about the ID tags, I went back and redid all my ID tags, but then it took away all my views and downloads from the first 8 or 12, because I renamed it basically, I guess, when I changed the ID tags.
You
Yeah.
changed, so you made what I would call a rookie error.
Oh yeah, I've made several.
Creating a whole new podcast instead of just updating the MP3 file to the original podcast post.
Correct.
Which would have preserved all of the
Downloads,
information and downloads.
Yeah.
ID3 tags, they are important. We put them in all of our podcasts. It's just, certain keywords that are used for search on many of the podcast platforms. That's the limit of them, though. I mean, it's really going to be helpful on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Podcasts and things like that, where they will actually, their search criteria, if people are typing in that they want to listen to a podcast about travel shows, I mean, I would think every one of your episodes should have certain base keywords that is going to cast a wide net for people searching on the podcast platforms. And that's how they're used. I think having some in there for your daughter for the music is great too, but that's probably going to serve her a lot more than it'll serve you. And
No, and that's what happened when I didn't even know about ID tags, and all of a sudden I was about, I think, 6 or 7 episodes in, and then I started doing research on it and went, oh shit! So I went back to all my episodes and changed them all to get her name off of it, because she doesn't care. She just does music for fun.
Mhm.
And I changed them all to my Travel Wins podcast and all that. And all of a sudden all my data went, and I was like, oh, all my downloads just disappeared.
Well, that probably wasn't because of those tags. It was probably because of how you re-uploaded that MP3 file to
Right.
the old one. It was probably that process, depending on how you're hosting your podcast or where you're hosting your podcast. And that maybe is a technical rabbit hole we'll need to go down at some point. But that's probably why it was. So there should be a way, no matter where you're hosting, where you can just replace the source MP3 file and leave everything else about
You must
that
name it
post
exactly
identical.
the same.
The in some systems you
Yeah.
have to name the MP3 file exactly the same. If you gave it a different name, that can do it. But anyway,
Yeah, and because I'm not taking it, it's a passion project. I'm kind of just getting through it. But I also am very fortunate enough. I won the Lewis Howes podcast to be on his podcast in 3 weeks.
oh wow,
So I was thinking, when I go be on his podcast, I was going to talk to his audio people and his video people to see how he does. But this is even better, to be honest with you.
good.
Good.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what we hope. We hope this will be very useful and helpful to all of us. And it's going to be an interesting journey, because sometimes it's going to be people that are brand new that have burning questions that some of us have heard or dealt with before, and that's not going to help some of us. And others, there'll be more advanced questions, but hopefully there'll be enough for everybody. And I want to try to make sure we do that every mastermind call, that we are able to do that a little bit for everybody.
But you do have an issue that's really common, and I think we should all mention it, because I'm having the same issue. So I'm starting a brand new podcast with a new co-host that's not Tom, and so
For the first time.
for the first time, yeah. And so and she's in New York and I'm here, and it's like us finding time to co-host, record together was a challenge. So we really had to think creatively as to how are we going to make sure we can get out enough content every month and this doesn't hold us back. And so we came up with a strategy where I interview and do a podcast a month, which I do typically do my recordings in one single day. That's just how I like to do them. So I make people record. I make my guests record in one particular day of the month. And then she's going to record whenever she wants to, but she's going to get her 4 recordings done over the month. And then we're going to get together and we're just going to do a 2-hour session a month where we've listened to each other's shows, that kind of like conversation about what we each learned, and those will be half-hour pieces. So we'll be able to knock out another 4 episodes. So we'll be able to do 3 a week, and we'll be able to do that without it consuming all of our time or trying to figure out how to coordinate our schedules. And that's really challenging. So as you get bigger and as your show grows with its cachet, then you can command and tell people you have to record on these days. These are the days I'm available. And if you can't do November, then you'll do December. It'll be fine. I've never had anyone choose to not record because they couldn't find a time. It was just a matter of, maybe I'll get you in 2 months. Yeah. And it just takes time. But because I try to consolidate and say, these are my slots that are available, they work with that. And it is a challenge when you have big time zones, though. That's like the bigger challenge. And so I've had to be a little bit more
like
flexible. I've had to be a little bit more flexible and saying, okay, so I am on those days that I record going to allow myself to go deeper into the evening or earlier in the morning than I normally like to, just to accommodate the time zones now that I have this different type of show.
I gotcha. For me, everybody I've talked to, I haven't done a podcast by myself. So it's always been me calling, people, and my difficulty has been the audio quality. I haven't been real happy with, because I'm doing it through the phone, and I'm not using it. And some of it's, and they're on their phone. And so if my first podcast, I had to completely redo because he wasn't in a Wi-Fi zone and it kept cutting out. And so we literally had to completely re-record. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend you use something better than a phone. A laptop with either Zoom, or even if you have to call somebody because they're really low tech averse, whatever, or old school, and they're like, well, I'll be interviewed, but you need to call me on the phone. I would still use a laptop and use something like Skype, where you can call a landline and all they have to do is answer and talk. Right. And I know you can call in from a phone to Zoom. That's true, but you got to use a PIN. And I've experienced some people, rarely, but I've experienced some people that can't handle that. So just call them through Skype. There are tools you can record through Skype, and it'll be better quality, at least on your end, and perhaps for the whole interview to record that way. So just a little tip on that.
If you send us an email, Peter, back, what I can make sure, and Scott has our information, so that anyone can have it. You can send it to, I don't even know what it is. Something. What are you talking about? What is it? hello@podetize? What is our general? I don't know.
I'll make sure to get it out to you.
Tom will make sure. I'm sure it's in all the emails that you all got. There's a way to get to us. I know, Alex, we have on our Podetize platform some tech videos that might be really useful to you, Peter.
Okay.
Particularly one on how to use Zoom and how to use Skype, like Tom's referring to. There are 2 there, but and trying to do that so that there's a lot less tech for you in the process. That's why a lot of people prefer to use Zoom, because when we're here recording right now, it's actually recording our audio here, and it's recording Scott's audio there, your audio where it is, and there's all these separated tracks, which make it easier if you do use an audio editor, but the combined track is already all synced up and ready for you, and it's just easy.
Wait, when you record on Zoom, are you able to strip out just the audio and then download?
It actually saves an audio file without the video, and the video with the audio, and then each audio track separately if you set it up properly. It's just a one-time thing. So it's a great modern tool. In fact, I'd say the majority of the people we work with in podcasting are using Zoom, even though there are other softwares that record a higher quality audio. If your audio quality is paramount, then there are other tools you can use either in combination with Zoom or instead of Zoom. But definitely Zoom is the most widely used as far as what we see now.
My last podcast that I just put up was with a guy named Dennis Franks. And he was in the movie The Invincible, with the Mark Wahlberg movie.
Sure.
He was one of the characters, one of the NFL players. And he was asking me about Zoom in the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And if I had used it and all that. So it's just interesting timing.
It is. Yeah. Well, there you go. I think it's time to jump on that and make it easier on yourself. But also, I think, I mentioned to some people that we have a lot of people who just straight do Facebook Live.
Mhm.
You just straight to
Yeah,
Facebook
that's
Live and
right.
you download it, and it's not hard to strip your audio off of that. That's really, there's a whole bunch of tools. All you do is drop them in and the audio file separates. So, and those tools are usually free. So it's, you know, it's not hard to be able to do those things without a lot of tech knowledge.
Okay. You make it sound so simple. Now I'm going to feel stupid asking for
No,
advice.
don't feel that way, because I felt the same way to begin with, Peter. It just, you don't know what you don't know, and it just, you just have to kind of take a little bit of action and play around with it and get better at it. It sounds more difficult. Me, I've never stripped down an audio file. I just send it to those guys over there. But I do a mixture of Zoom, but I use Facebook Live all the time through like BeLive.tv. It records it, and you know, if I have to, I can get on Skype to the left. But it's pretty relatively easy to use and stuff. Like, just got to play around with it. And like I said, I'll be glad to jump on it and play around with it back. I had Tom and Tracy. Was it 2 weeks ago for International Podcast Day? We were doing that back and forth.
Absolutely. Yeah, we put I recorded. Scott and I each did a separate sort of event, and then we joined together at the end. But I was recorded for like 12 and a half hours straight, 30-minute interviews. I think I had 25 guests that whole day for International Podcast Day, and we're turning that into its own series, which is going to be on the Podcast Peeps website and the Podcast Peeps podcast. But we put them there. So those are coming. They're probably about 2 weeks away from that, but because it was a lot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
With 17 episodes in, 5 months of experience of podcast, if you were me going on the Lewis House podcast, how would you best use that platform to obviously expand? How would you do it?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna let Scott take that one.
I would start using some video, because Lewis is so big on Instagram.
Yeah.
What he does, I think you've got to add video to that, and then either live stream it to Facebook Live or something like that to help leverage that aspect. Because I think if you just did audio on that, you'll get some traffic off it. But if you use some videos, photos of the event, and share it through Facebook and LinkedIn and all that, and YouTube as well, or Vimeo, you can add a lot more to your audience. And I think maybe in 2 weeks, I just had an idea. Why don't we talk about case studies a little bit of using myself and adding video to? What do you think about that, Tom and Tracy? Huh?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, because I mean, there's a lot of people who have good back and forth between that and can see the difference between how many views you get, how many listens you get. So, and
one thing I'd like to add to that, to consider to get the most out of that interview, you need to incentivize your guest. You need to make it easy for them.
He's going to be a guest on somebody else's show.
Oh, I thought he was a guest on your show. Oh, Kevin, is he a guest on?
I'm a guest on his show.
You're a guest on his show. Never mind. All right.
But he's gonna. I'm going to assume that I'll be able to get the video and the audio or whatever.
Yeah, that's
you'll
great.
be able to share it.
You'll be able to
share it.
I thought I misheard it. I guess I thought he was going to be on your show. And in that case, if he's a real big name and you're not, you want to get the most out of it. If he's on your show, or if anybody who's going to have a big guest on their show, and we can talk about this in future masterminds, take deeper dives into how you might do this. And I just want to plant the seed. You got to make it easy for your guests to share it. You got to incentivize them to share it. You have to make them want to share it. Right. How do you do that? And there are lots of ways. So
let me just quickly, because I write articles on famous people all the time, and some of them are horrible. They're like the worst at sharing stuff. I can tell you that right now. Like, so I mean, it's like every time somebody's like, "Oh, but they're such a big name," I go, "Yeah, but they'll be the lowest read article." If I write about some small entrepreneur, they're going to be so active and so happy I wrote about them that they're going to push it out and do a really great job of it. So I have some tips that I use, and we really make sure that we do it. Is that what we want? You clearly want to make sure that you embed some kind of image, whether it's a graphic that you create yourself that says, basically, hear me on the Lewis show, the Lewis, what's his last name? House. Lewis House show. And then you could put a quote of something you say or something he said that just fits your business travel, information, right? And you put that image on your media page or right on your homepage, and make sure you put a direct link to wherever that podcast resides on his site. Not on his homepage, to where the podcast resides on his site or the video resides. And so that is going to give your site some power. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you share everything he sends you or every link that he has. So if he's got a video on YouTube, you share a video on YouTube. If he gives you the podcast audio, you share the audio. If he gives you a graphic image, you share the graphic. If he doesn't, you make a graphic and you share it. And always be sending traffic to that him for that particular case on Facebook and Instagram or wherever you do your social. Do it from there, because when you do that and you're giving back to him, he's going to then promote you the next time you share something. So his team will recognize the value you added to him.
The law of reciprocity really does work in this industry we're all in with podcasts, and the more you will do for someone, they will do for you, and we can all help each other. And I think that's really what I hope becomes indicative of this mastermind too.
Right.
I agree. I mean, I've already experienced some people. I was super excited that they were going to be on. I mean, overly excited, and then they're half the downloads of other ones because they didn't self-promote it. They did. I mean, they said, "Hey, go to this page, check it out, whatever," but they weren't. Whereas a guy that wrote a book, he promoted it several times, and he's my second highest download. And it wasn't.
There you go. That's what I mean. Like the books, the authors, the speakers, they know that. The third thing, if you want to put a little money behind it, okay, is that if you do something like maybe we call them audiograms, but you can do these like little things where you can take a clip from it of where he's talking and you're talking, and you just say, hear me on the Lewis House show, and then there's the little audiogram that you can see like the audio file tracking, the wave file, and it's not long. It 5 minutes or 3 minutes.
No, 30 seconds.
30
even.
seconds even. But you take that and you put it on your Facebook, and then a week or two later, boost it as a post and pay for ads on it. Nope, Scott's saying no.
That.
Never boost it.
Never boost
Go
it.
ahead and do an ad for it, but don't boost it.
Ad for it. Okay. Do an ad for it. Okay. So there you go. Do an ad for it. And thank you for that. You're much more on that. But I have, when someone has done that for my articles, it has done tremendously well at boosting views on my article. When somebody else is sharing it for you or advertising for you in a way, you're not advertising it on your homepage, you're advertising it on his site. There's something about that Facebook gives higher value to. And so you end up with better circulation, and it has a direct back where people are like, oh, he must be valuable. And they start connecting with you. Mm-hmm. So it adds value back to you. So
it's synergy.
You're twisting my brain right now.
That's right. There you go.
We'll keep twisting it, Peter. We'll keep twisting it. Definitely.
Hey, Peter, thank you for
appreciate it.
being in the hot seat.
Anybody else? Raise your hand.
Hang on here. Let's see here.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good, Peter. Best of luck.
So I'll just.
That's awesome. I mean, I think you should be doing. If it's a travel thing, I should think you should have every one of his guests do a picture of somewhere they're at, and then send him the photo. Take his logo, slap it in the bottom corner, and then he goes back to Google and uploads that photo in that specific area and names it that area. It'll pop up anybody like searching online, like a Yelp thing. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, no, that is true. That's really cool. Well, see, that's where, the localities are going to make a big difference for his podcast growth, because, some of us, just because you have all of those regional places, it's like, if I'm looking for a podcast and I happen to be in the country, it's just going to pop it up for me because Google is serving up those kind of localities and regionalities. So it's got a great benefit.
Mm-hmm. When we said we take one more hot seat, more hot seat before we wrap up for the night, so we can go back to watching the Astros come back on the Red Sox.
Who are we gonna pick on here?
Keith Baker. Hey, buddy, you want to come on, or Stephanie Lahart?
Hey, I'm good with Red Sox Dodgers. Let's do that. All right.
It'd probably be a higher series since you have LA and Boston versus people not wanting to see the Astros win again.
Oh, Anna's volunteering.
Anna is me. Okay. Let me bring her on here.
We like action takers.
That's right.
That's right. Of course, Keith's probably watching the game and cussing up and chasing his two kids and his golden Spaniard around his thing.
Oh, there we go.
Hold on, you're muted.
So here, this is a great example. Peter, she's on her phone, and we got the audio working for Peter here via Zoom, right, Anna?
How old were you are. Anna, where are you?
I'm in just north of Seattle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And driving. Keep your eyes on the road, please.
I know. Well, don't worry. I'll be able to pull over soon. So
what's your challenge?
Well, I just started at the beginning of July. So I think it's just getting the podcast out there. I think I'm still getting the same listeners, which is good, but I would like to expand.
So what's your podcast, Anna?
It's called The Spirituality of Strength Training.
Strength training?
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Of strength training. Ooh, nice.
So is it a solo show where you're just talking about things, or do you bring guests on, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a hybrid of both. I started off with just 2 guests a month, and then me doing short and sweet episodes, and then this month I've had all guests, which was a lot more work than I realized, which has been fun. I really like that. So I guess 2 things. How do I limit the work with having more guests on, but still be consistent? Because I upload every Sunday.
So you do 1 episode a week every Sunday.
Yeah.
So she needs to take the work out of everything regarding guests, which is great and a common issue.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already, I think a lot of it can be done through setting up systems.
Okay.
Properly. You got to put some time in to set up some systems so to make your guest do more work for you. That's one thing I would suggest. Meaning you have a booking calendar link. We use Schedule Once, right? Calendly is another. There's a lot you can use, but where you set up a booking calendar link, yes, for them to book on your calendar, but before they can book, they have to fill out some fields, their name,
okay,
social media channels, provide their bio, upload their headshot, basically providing you all the material you need. So you don't have to go hunt for it.
Right. Yeah.
Going to, you be looking for that information for maybe it's your show notes page on your website or promote it online or whatever. Yeah. That's one example that we have done that works very well, because I even pull it up on my calendar and there's the bio and information they've written on themselves, and I have that up on my computer when I'm interviewing the guest, or when I'm so I have that information handy, or even when I'm recording a little intro about my guest. I have that right there, it makes it really easy for me. What else would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. And then limiting your calendar is the next thing, because when you let them go all over your calendar. So if you set up a special, this is what happens. When you set up a calendar that's just for it. So like I'm doing a new podcast, as I mentioned, and I created a Gmail just for that podcast because we have a new website and we are going to have new social channels for it. So it's newtrusteconomy@gmail.com. I have a calendar that's just for that, but I've only allowed a couple of days over the course of a month that anyone's allowed to book on. So that's it. So it has 4 hours total of time someone could book. I happen to spread them out over a couple of days to give people choices, because I'm doing a lot of traveling and I want to book some episodes and get a bunch in. But normally I'd end up with 1 day a month they were allowed to record on. And so that also limits it. So you're going to sit down, you're going to focus, and you're going to record for 4 hours in a day and do all the episodes and everything you're going to do. I always make it an hour, even if I only plan to record for half an hour, because it gives you another buffer time so that you upload the episode, make sure you've processed it, do whatever you might need to do on your end as well.
Okay. So I do like batch interviews, and I find that I can only do like about 3, and then I'm like mentally spent.
So give yourself
tips on
it happens. I sometimes, because I batch do this as well, so I'll do I do 6 ink articles a month, and there's always an interview, and I'll do them all in one day, and I'll have 6 interviews, and I can't even think anymore by the time I'm through my 3rd or 4th at the same time, and because I'm also jumping subject matter, so there. Yeah, so then say I'm not going to do more than 2, but I'm going to allow myself 2 days a month, and that's it. Those are the 2 days I'm recording in, and if anyone wants to be on my show, then that's it.
Okay, Cool. How do you get people to like ask to be on your show?
So yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I prefer to ask them.
Okay.
I just don't. I mean, we have a form on our site, but people who fill it out usually are spammers and
Got it.
and tend to be people who are over promoting stuff like their books or their courses, and they're not going to be right for our show anyway. So I prefer to just go meet people and invite them myself, or I invite people through LinkedIn all the time, and they never refuse. So I invite them that way. So if I'm looking for someone of a certain profile, I invite them that way.
Okay. Good to know.
One of the things you might do too is, like we talked about before, going and finding somebody that's in your niche,
right?
Reaching out to them, or doing like a show swap, where hey, I'd like to be on your show, but I think I might be a fit for your show, and it kind of crosses leverages, so you drive some listeners to your show because they're a guest on your show, and vice versa, you're a guest on their show. So we've seen some peaks in our downloads of episodes where people are guests and they're sharing it across their board, and they're a guest of mine, and I was a guest on their show as well. So
I just answered you, Peter. Landscape is best because it's best for YouTube. So just to answer your question, because you typed in what's better to do portrait. So when you're doing interviews or anything like that, it's hard, but do landscape. So and the other thing about guests is that if they're not right, then just don't do it. Do more of you. So you have to do 2 a month or 3 a month, and just do the rest of you.
And time is precious when you're doing these things, but even after you do an interview, if it's a bomb of an interview and this is not a fit for what you want to bring to your listeners, or they had a different agenda and it wasn't in the right spirit of things, dump it. You don't have to publish it.
That happened to me last Monday. I'm like, no, that show is deleting. We're not even going on that one.
That's one thing that we put in the disclaimer, that when Tom was referring to the form that you fill out.
Oh, got it.
Form that says you're giving us permission for anything you say, because sometimes they'll come back to you and they'll go like, I didn't mean to say that. You need to re-edit that, and that costs money to re-edit stuff. And or time. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You agreed to it. It's at my discretion.
Right.
Now, if it's reasonable and they just sounded bad and I probably should have edited it out, of course I would do it. But if they just
make sure you have the rights and the control, it's your show.
Right. And so I also say in there that we have the right not to air it.
Got it. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Are you doing video or just audio?
Well, I have all the video. I haven't uploaded to YouTube at all. I don't know why.
How are you recording it?
Through Zoom.
Okay. So here's a little trick that's great about Zoom is you can hit the button to live stream it and share it to Facebook.
Yeah.
Or YouTube.
Do you have to have a different membership for that?
You do have to have a little bit better, but even if you download the video, then you can re-upload it to YouTube. But what I like to do is I'll share it to Facebook. Like we're sharing this tonight to Facebook Live.
Right. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So I can go back in tomorrow and use a service called repurpose.io.
Repurpose.io. Okay.
Repurpose.io, and it'll literally have all my videos that it'll go and find any video done on YouTube or on Facebook. And I can press one button and put the show notes in, the tags, and it'll go do the upload to YouTube for me. I can do like 20, 40 at a time.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it saves me a lot of time in editing that I don't have to do by going. I can do it all at once.
Yeah, that's like
one video at a time.
That's like the biggest thing where I'm like, oh, I don't even want to upload because I've spent so much time at the computer already.
Yeah, so this starts uploading it on the side. It's like I set it and forget it.
What's that called again?
Repurpose.io. It's like $20 a month.
Okay, repurpose.io. Okay, great.
You can set it so that it tags them all into like private or unpublished yet. So you could also then still go in and make them public on the
got it.
So it uploads them and they're all waiting for you and ready, but then you just have to go in and that week on your Sunday you turn it on and now it's public.
Got it. Okay,
one important thing about uploading to YouTube, don't upload unfinished video, because if you just upload a video to it and he's like, I'll get around to editing the title and the tags and the description later, that actually hurts you, because the minute you upload a video to YouTube, it automatically goes out and tries to find you traffic.
Right.
Okay? So it tries to find keywords and things. So if you don't have a description on there, your title's not right, it doesn't find any traffic. So upload it, but don't publish it until you're ready to make sure you get the right description in there, at least the right title, and the right tags. But with Repurpose, you can set up all your tags and your title from one screen, but never overload just a raw video and leave it sit there. It's the worst thing you can do for your traffic.
That's a really good tip.
Okay. Good to know. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Anna. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling over.
Yeah.
Pulling
I did.
over.
I have a really great
Yeah.
guest for you. I have a really great guest for you. So make sure you reach out. Okay.
Wait, what? What's
might
the last
have
part?
I might have some great guests for you. So
Oh, awesome. Great. Yeah, I will. Thank you.
I've got a great guest for you as well. And by the way, thank you, Tracy, for your 2 guests you sent over to me. They're awesome.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked them.
All right. So we got some comments here real fast before I'm going to.
Videos, not in Zoom.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
any video is
Editable.
editable once you download it from Zoom and put it in a video editing program, but not within Zoom. No.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good question, Peter.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So you know what? I don't want to really make a plug for Podetize, but I do want to mention that we have a system by which you can put your bumpers on without editing anything. Like we feel like we should tell people like it's a customer service. So you want to tell it? I'm losing
Well, I
my voice.
mean, if you're somebody who's doing it yourself and you don't have a big budget for a video producer, what are bumpers? Yeah, bumpers would be that's a good question.
music.
Start with that. Your usual
Intros and outros, basically. Yeah.
introduction and a pre-recorded exit, or we also call it an outro to a show. Just makes your show that much more professional. We do highly recommend doing that. And a lot of people, even if they don't care about editing an interview within the interview to remove awkward pauses and ums and ahs, let's say, hey, I went live on Facebook with it anyway. Why do I really need to edit it to put it out as a podcast? Okay, if that's you and you're okay with that, you may, though, still want to frame it with an intro and an outro, right? So yeah, the way our system goes, you can have a pre-recorded outro, upload it once to your account, and then you upload your your audio that was recorded live. And if you did it as a video, you could strip the audio off, get it to an MP3 format, upload that, and then, click a box on our hosting platform that says add the bumpers to it. And so it'll add it and then publish it to iTunes and everywhere else. So you don't even need to edit. So that's, that if you're, that doesn't work for everybody. I mean, in business, for a business related podcast, I would never do that. I want my guest to sound their best always. I want to make sure I sound my best, remove any ums and ahs, awkward pauses, or Tracy hitting the microphone because she talks with her hands
all the time.
And so anyway, we want a professionally edited podcast, and we spend that kind of money. So, and if you don't have an outro and you don't need one, you don't have to do that. But we tend to put an intro.
Yeah, I just wanted people to be aware that it's like you're already paying for hosting, and our hosting package can let you do it too.
Yeah.
So it's just there.
So yeah, bumpers. I mean, hey, there's no right or wrong terms for what to call them. Intros, outros, bumpers, whatever, trailer, theme.
Peter's
song.
mentioning that he hasn't done outros, but he's done intros before. The reason I like the outros is because sometimes I get busy and because we're doing interviews and I do a lot of Zooms, but I also have one podcast where I have a bunch of experts. And so they're actually doing all the recording work for me. And so all I have to do is slap the bumpers on it. And so I do an outro, which basically says, hey, thank you for listening to Product Launch Hazards. You can find us on this website and find us on social media at Has Design. And so that's in my outro. And I never have to make sure that they said it properly or that I remember to say it if I'm rushed at the end of a call or somebody interview has to end quickly. I just drop the bumper on and I don't have to then go back and record something separate and then add it on later. And it's always consistent. And I use our voiceover now. Originally we did it, but I use our voiceover now because it sounds more professional. And so, that, and then also for my people who listen again and again and again, my binge listeners, they can skip it. They no, okay, I don't need to listen to this. I heard this. I know exactly how to find them.
But a good outro would be too, if you have a guest on that has something and you maybe don't agree, it's a controversial thing. Maybe you do an outro as your 30 to your final thought, your Jerry Springer final thought of the episode.
We do that on almost all of our podcasts. If we have a guest, we record the interview with the guest. Then after that interview, with the knowledge of what happened and the experience of it, we then record an intro to introduce our guest. that gets put at the front, and we record our final thoughts, our conclusions, what we thought of the interview, and highlight a few important things. And then we put the outro bumper on. But you can do that in an outro, just like you were saying, Scott. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. 90 plus minutes for our first mastermind.
Cool. So Peter asked, should I ask Lewis for the usage rights for our podcast and add bumpers to it?
They won't let you.
Ask
They won't let you. I doubt it. I mean,
Lewis?
it won't let you.
Lewis?
Now, if they're not blogging it,
Oh, Peter
if there
Lewis.
is no blog, that would be really great to ask for the opportunity to write and I would say I would write rather than a transcription style blog, because it's weird when you don't have that. I mean, you can share your audio file, you can do it, but you have to link back to his original. But to do I call it like you would call it like a seed article, a copywritten article. You could have a copywriter come and take the content that was there and write a 600, 800 word article that you put on your site, embed the video or the original file, and you can use that on your site as the lead generator.
One other quick thing, he's probably not going to give you the rights to put bumpers on his show, but you can ask permission, and he probably will give it, for you to sort of rebroadcast his show. You might hang on to that, and as you get to be featured on a dozen podcasts, or Scott's going on 20 other podcasts before the end of the year, save each of those. You could put out a podcast feed that's just a separate feed of all the shows you've been on. And another way to promote yourself, and it's not your podcast, but it's you on other people's podcasts. That's another tool you can use.
And actually that reminds me of one more thing. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, so it's Tracy Lee, Leigh, because that's my middle name, Hazzard with 2 Z's. If you go and find me, or go to my profile page, on pretty much when you hit the longer description about me, you'll see that there are little videos there. Those are clips, audio clips with quotes that are from podcasts I was on. I did get permission to repurpose those, but I didn't need to because the clips are so short. But I did get permission from all the hosts to do that. And I created it so you can see the quote of what they're saying, but there's an audio track there. And I created a short little video, and I got permission from every one of those hosts to let me do that. So it's like a testimonial right there, because it happens to be how they introduced me, not what I said on the show. So that's also another way to get a little more boost for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. I wanted to give a big shout out to those: Deborah Benefield, Emilio Quiroga, Sheila Galligan, John Puppets, Tyler Sheff out there. Hey, buddy, good to see you. That have been watching online as well for you on the Facebook Live aspect of it. So I thought, before we wrap it up, because I think we're kind of coming to a good stopping point, I thought we'd do one other thing. I'll just throw this out there.
Okay.
So I'm going to send a Google Doc out to those that actually attended, that registered and attended, with their name. And what I ask them to do is put their podcast link, and it'll be a live link. We can all go back in and share and leave reviews or listen to everybody's podcast. How's that sound?
Yeah, subscribe for everybody. We can help boost each other.
Review. We can help each other. That's something I'm sure every new podcaster can use.
Yeah.
It'd be a great way to subscribe, add comments, and share, and make you a little bit binge worthy with everybody here, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Good stuff. Any final thoughts, you guys? Steph, you want us to have a final thought?
I want to say I think this first meeting has been fantastic. There's been a lot of great questions, a lot of awesome tech tips that you guys have thrown out, and I think for those people who jumped on the hot seat, they should have some more episodes coming out.
That's right. Proud of you all too.
Really do. So this has been great.
And awesome. I've had a lot of fun too. I think
it's been a short 90 minutes. It actually has been 90 minutes. Wow.
But I think it's the beginning of a great experience
for
all of us. Oh,
it was too hot. It's hot. The light is got a light on me.
Anyway, beginning of a great experience, and stop playing with the light. And, really, I look forward to having a lot more fun with all of you and helping us each push our podcast forward and helping each other.
I want to
out.
go hang out in person. So I really hope you guys, we get some of you stick around, become really involved, and we go decide to have some fun someplace, because I would love to do that.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that really fast, kind of what we see with the future of that, and then we'll wrap it up there for the most part. We've talked about how do we want to do this, and we want to make this really available to a lot of people, because we know people have different budgets, different things they're working on for their podcasts out there. And so what we decided is to help kind of build the audience, build up, seeing that the content we're providing is doing these, webinars, Zooms every 2 weeks to really provide some great content for you. And then start the first year, we're probably going to turn this into a membership kind of mastermind, right, Tom and Tracy? Just for time purposes to help out with some things.
Kind of a paid, experience, because we want people who are serious. And I think that, if you're serious, you'd be willing to pay a little something.
We don't want it to be out there. Like that's the one thing that I feel really strongly. Like so many of these masterminds are so overpriced for what they're giving. We want this to be reasonable, but we want you to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
So you show up and participate.
Yeah, exactly. And then having basically 3 or 4 in-person true meetings, like, one on the West Coast, one here in Austin, maybe one on the East Coast, and kind of rotate around and, throwing a price on there for that's affordable for most people as well, too, for you. Because I think that's where I think we can see everybody that's never been on a mastermind call, but and you can see the momentum and the great stuff that comes from being able to ask questions and be able to talk about it face to face, right, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of synergy that comes out of things like this, and it's very organic. And you want to talk about growing passion projects. You have one person on there and you link up with somebody else and realize you have a common thread that binds you together. And it's really cool to see how people will take one idea and then it becomes 2 or 3, and you've got, a couple of different things going on at one time, if that makes sense. One thing I want to add to the comment of the financial aspect is it's not just accessibility on the financial level, it's accessibility on the time level too, because most of us can agree that the thing we are short on is time, whether it's our families or our work or our passions or whatever. So when we do have get-togethers, we want to make them where it's valuable, it's special, and it's an experience. So that's my 2 cents on those. And I know in our own masterminds, we have a lot of fun, and there's a lot of, networking. There's a lot of people growing, getting out of their comfort zone. And then, you see, to Peter, who hasn't done the video yet, and I didn't like doing video either, and it's gotten easier, but on my end, it's time. It's always time. But for people like Peter, when you see other people doing video, you're like, I can do that. It's not that hard. Even if you're just by yourself with your cell phone and your Zoom isn't working, and nothing else is working on your laptop because your webcam went out, and you can jump on Facebook and just do your own live. So you learn a lot from each other, and it's just a great way.
I'm excited, Steph, because you are like the genius travel person. You always find the coolest hotels and the most fun. So I'm so excited you're on our team to help us plan the cool live events.
I'm excited for that too. I love that kind of stuff. It's so much fun.
If Peter's listening, Peter should have Steph on to talk about France and our 3-week trip that we went to Europe and how she researched the hotel that was once a working brothel.
It was wonderful.
Seriously.
You came back and my comment was, how did she look so amazing? Like in every single photo, like I would have been so travel worn. Like I don't even know how you did it. Alexandra has been packing. They have 4 suitcases, 2 suitcases a piece.
I prepare
for our trip, which is 10 days long.
Uh-oh, we have another guest.
Well, we know you won't be on a train. At least not in
exactly. So Peter, Stephanie's on LinkedIn. You can find her, Stephanie Goodman, or just drop me an email and I'll put you in touch there. Hey, girls.
Yeah. Hi.
This is our we need to make dinner ready,
so it's dinner time there. I take it, right? Yeah. Good stuff. Well, hey, I think that'll wrap it up for this first kickoff of the Podcast Peeps Mastermind. Thank you for everybody that shared. They got the hot seat to provide content, comments. We totally love that. We dig that. And that's the only way that we all grow together is by really just being vulnerable and sharing what our biggest gaps are so that we can overcome that and become stronger podcasters and stronger entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yes, Buffy, you can have the Google Doc too, as long as you promise to subscribe and watch or share. That sounds great. So totally appreciate it.
That's exactly right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll see you all later. Bye.
Good night.
You're making faces on the camera.